Let's begin with Karyn outside court this morning. Karyn, well, this is it really for Oscar Pistorius today. He will get to know for how long, if at all, he's going to spend time in jail. We know that the state has made it clear in their arguments last time, in their closing arguments, asking for a minimum sentence of 15 years, while Oscar Pistorius' defense has been arguing differently.
Well, absolutely. Karyn, the prosecutor, just walking into court a few moments ago, this has been a career-defining case for him. We know in the South African landscape he had become famous for his prosecution of Jackie Selebi for corruption, but really the Oscar Pistorius case has thrust him into the global spotlight, him making a very strong argument using the extremely emotional testimony of Reeva Steenkamp's father, Barry, that it was simply not good enough for Oscar Pistorius' defense team to argue that he was a broken man, when in fact there was such brokenness in Barry Steenkamp and the family members of Reeva Steenkamp who had lost someone truly exceptional. Of course, today Oscar Pistorius is 29, the age Reeva Steenkamp was when he killed her, and he's looking at the possibility of 15 years behind bars. However, a number of experts saying that that sentence is unlikely. He is likely to get a prison term, but a lot of speculation that the judge will choose to suspend part of that prison term. The real question at this point, Dan, what his effective sentence will actually be.
Karyn, what's likely to be considered by Judge Thokozile Masipa? I mean, what she should be considering? What are the factors at play here that she must consider when she makes her sentencing today, bearing in mind that, she could be challenged?
Well, absolutely. Remember that the Minimum Sentences Act was put in place by the South African legislature in response to a wave of violent crime that was gripping the country in the late 1990s. And Parliament felt that in dealing with that scourge, they would impose certain minimum sentences for serious offences such as murder. And that's really what Oscar Pistorius is facing today. The law says that a minimum sentence of 15 years must be imposed for this offence unless the judge or the substantial compelling circumstances can be found justifying the imposition of a lesser sentence. Now, what the defence has argued is that Oscar Pistorius is a first offender. He has already spent a year behind bars for culpable homicide. The factual finding of the judge, which was not overturned by the Supreme Court of Appeal, is that he acted out of fear, out of the belief that he was defending himself and Reeva Steenkamp. We know the appeal court rejected the argument that he was acting in so-called putative self-defense and said that he didn't have a rational basis for firing through his toilet door. But the defense very much still arguing that this was a person, as they displayed in that very dramatic argument during sentencing, who was an amputee on his stumps, vulnerable and acting out of fear. She will look at that kind of argument. She will look at the psychological argument put forward by Dr. Jonathan Skultz, who was on that state-appointed panel to evaluate Oscar Pistorius, describing him as psychologically vulnerable. She will also, of course, consider the very powerful testimony of Reeva Steenkamp's family, Kim Martin and Barry Steenkamp, her father, who broke down and described how he would think about the pain that his beloved daughter had suffered in the moments of her death, and in doing so he would slam his hand against the wall or stab himself with his own diabetic injections so that he could get some sense of what his daughter had gone through. Real heartbreak and anguish in the court today. Of course, the judge has said in her own Judicial Service Commission interview, when she was questioned about her decision in the Oscar Pistorius case, that she was not in her position to win popularity contests, Dan, that she had to do what was right under the law and what she believed to be the right thing to do in that moment. She will know, of course, when she weighs up all those factors, when she makes this future-defining decision for both Oscar Pistorius and Reeva Steenkamp's family, that she will have to weigh up all those factors. But she does know that if the state is not happy and that if it feels that her sentence is shockingly inappropriate for the offence that Oscar Pistorius was convicted of, murder under the principle of dolus eventualis, they have shown that they will appeal in the past, and it is very likely that they will do so yet again.
Karyn Maughan outside the North Gauteng High Court in Pretoria there, where later on Oscar Pistorius will be sentenced. Now, let's go to outside Oscar Pistorius' uncle's home where he's been staying. And we're joined there by Lirandzu Themba, who's been watching developments in their home this morning. Earlier, Lirandzu, when we spoke to you, it was still very dark and still very quiet. Have you seen any movement around Oscar's uncle's home as they get ready to go to court for sentencing later this morning?
Good morning to you, Bradan. Definitely this quiet, leafy suburb of Waterkloof is starting to come to life this morning, where we have seen numerous joggers and cyclists making their way. But inside this house, or outside rather, we haven't seen much movement apart from the security guard who is stationed outside the gate here on my right. And we have been reliably informed that he definitely still is inside. And of course, we are expecting Oscar Pistorius to make his way to the court. And just to pick up from what Karyn did say just shortly to you, Bradan, it'll be quite interesting to find out what this broken man is going through this morning. As you can imagine, he is probably preparing to go to court. Where is he having his last breakfast at this house before he is sentenced? Did he have a good night's rest last night? And obviously all of this is pure speculation, because we're not necessarily privy to that sort of information and that sort of footage. But we can only imagine what he is going through this morning, as we know that his fate will be sealed once again at the North Gauteng High Court.
Of course, Lirandzu, that in the past, when he's left that home, he'd been accompanied by his uncle. We've also seen his siblings showing their support for Oscar this morning. It's going to be interesting this morning to see who's going to be with him, walking with him and leaving their home with him and going to court.
Absolutely. Well, apart from the media contingent that is going to await Oscar Pistorius outside court, which I'm sure is already starting to gather there, it is going to be quite interesting to see who's going to be holding his hand when he is sentenced this morning. But more than anything, we have seen really moving scenes from the former Paralympian himself in court, alongside his siblings, who have really come out in full support. And that really has been the backbone of this man, who has, continuously been crying, sobbing away in front of the magistrate when he was going through his bail application before, and in front of the judge as well, while people were giving different testimony. So yes, family support has always been in the forefront, or the core really, of Oscar Pistorius' murder trial. However, we are yet to see who is going to be with him this morning as he enters into court, and what will also happen after he is sentenced. But the one shot that obviously all media houses who are starting to come to this part of town here in Waterkloof are really going to want is to see him coming out here and making his way to court. And we have seen other media houses coming to join us this morning to obviously try and see how he does look like this morning as he faces Judge Masipa once again.
In Waterkloof in Pretoria. Now, the resentencing of Oscar Pistorius is the topic of our viewer question this morning. We want to know from you, what do you think would be a fair sentence? Give us your views on our Facebook page, or you can tweet us at eNCA. We hope to bring you some of your comments later on in the program.